Warm morning, everyone. I welcome you all on the behalf of StudyIQ. My name is Pritesh Mathurkar, and I welcome you all to this exemplary sessions of the Hindu Analysis Zone. So today we'll be discussing the current affairs of 20th April 2023, and this is a novel initiative which has been started by StudyIQ, and I'm coordinating with the team in bringing you the utmost detailed, in bringing you the utmost sophisticated, and of course the utmost simple analysis of the Hindu, wherein I will be discussing the PDFs of the important article directly with you all, and those PDFs will also be available to you freely and in the same format which I will be discussing with you in the lectures. Okay. So before I move forward, let me just again introduce myself. My name is Pritesh Mathurkar. Okay, I will be your primarily faculty for analyzing the Hindu newspaper from prelims perspective, from mains perspective, as well as from interview perspective. Okay, you can reach out to me on a Telegram channel. The joining link is this telegram.me, the Hindu Analysis Zone. The name of the channel is HAZ, okay, similar to SEZ, Special Economic Zone. So we have the Hindu Analysis Zone. This channel is a free of cost channel wherein I will be posting the PDFs, whichever I'll be discussing each day on that group after this lecture. So you can summarize those PDFs from your end. And guys, I'm reiterating this for another 1 lakhth time that if you follow the way I am teaching you, if you follow the PDFs which I'm providing you on the group, your preparation of at least 30 to 40 marks in prelims and at least around 300 to 400 marks, and dare I say, if essay comes in your purview, approximately 500 to 600 marks will also be taken care of the mains, and interview it will start reflecting in your personality too. So I will be repeating this each day before coming to this lectures. What is expected from you all, that you have downloaded the Hindu's Delhi edition, or you have gotten the paper format in your notes, and you have marked up the important articles which you feel are important from civil services examination perspective. And when we are discussing the articles in the lecture, you are matching those articles with me so that you have a confidence that okay, we are on the right track. And the day you master this and the day you start resonating with me, see what wonders this does in your preparation. Okay. So I'm again reiterating, my name is Pritesh Mathurkar. You can reach out on the Telegram channel called as the Hindu Analysis Zone. Just do a global search on Telegram, and the name, basically the acronym of the channel is HAZ. Okay. So before any further ado, let's begin with analysis of today's current affairs. So some days the articles are very important, some days the articles are not that important, and some days you will feel as though the paper is of no use to us for today. Okay, it's natural to feel like that, and the day you start skipping majority of the articles of the Hindu, that day you will achieve mastery, because in civil services examination, what is important, what not to read, and what to read, that is very easy, but what not to read, understanding that fact is extremely difficult in this examination. Okay, so today's Hindu, if I say on a scale of 1 to 10, so today's Hindu will rank in approximately 7 to 8 level. Okay, two articles are extremely important, one article is not that important, and one article is moderately important. Okay, and I've already told you guys, my coverage of Hindu will be strictly with regards to the article coverage only. Okay. I am not a faculty, I am not a lecturer wherein I will try to crunch in as much information as possible in any article. Why? Because majority of you are in a elementary stage. Okay. So for you understanding the more advanced, more intricate detail, it becomes very difficult. So you will compile upon your material slowly, slowly, slowly. Okay. Always remember, slow but steady always wins the race, and that should be your sumo motive in civil services examination. Start your preparation slowly, slowly, keep on piling. And I'm again reiterating, any news which is important, it will come first in the headline page. Then the news will translate into the editorial page. If you have good analysis, it will come in the op-ed page, and then the most important page of the Hindu, that is text and context page. So if that news is extremely important, so after 1 or 2 months time, when enough data is available, when enough analysis will be done, you will have that news coming in the text and context page. So I am predominantly picking up the news from the text and context page, and of course from the editorial page for each and every one of you. Okay, so don't feel, oh, such a big thing has happened, so now we need to focus. Okay, so the first article that I'm discussing with you all is mindless violence. Is mindless violence. Good morning, Alicia. I hope you are doing fine. Okay, so now this is a news which is at least 3 days older, 2 days older. So you had our soldiers being killed in the Dantewada district because of Maoist insurgents. So, like, majority of you must have read the news, majority of you must have read here and there. But no, guys, you have to wait for a few days for good analysis to come. So this is the side lead editorial, not lead per se, the first side editorial of today's Hindu. In this editorial, two or three things have been discussed as to what went wrong, what tactics do the Maoists use, and what should be the future discourse. So, if you just summarize this one article, if you just understand this one article, you can paint a very good picture of the left wing extremism which is still relevant in India. Okay, so let's begin with the discussion of this article. Okay, so the Maoist attack in South Buster district is reflective of the group's potency. Okay, I'm again reiterating, the Maoist attack in South Buster is reflective of the group's potency. Okay, so you have three main regions of the left wing extremism. So you have the Bastar district, you have Andhra Pradesh, Odisha border, okay, and you also have Chhattisgarh. So these three or four districts or three or four regions coupled with the Bastar district, it is the hotspot of most activities. Bastar is the drainage basin of river Indravati, Dantewada. Okay, you have the forest of Dandakarnya over there. So all of these regions are very hotspots of Maoist insurgency. So let's begin. Okay, so you have to just read this that less than 2 years ago, Union Home Minister has said that various states the influence of the left-wing extremism has been decreased, but still left-wing extremism is active where? Number one, it is active in South Buster, it is active in the Andhra Odisha border and in some districts of Jharkhand and in Chhattisgarh too. Okay, so you have districts of Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh too. So these are the 3-4 regions wherein the Maoist activities are still active. So just remember these 3 or 4 regions if you have any answer or any quotation in the mains examination. I'm again reiterating, it is active in South Buster. Okay, you can summarize Bastar as the region of Dandakarnya. Dandakarnya forests. Okay, this is Dandakarnya forest on Dandakarnya plateau region. Okay, why this is important, why this region is especially important, we will come in due course of time. Okay, so let us move ahead with the discussion. Okay, the tip-off indicates that the Maoist attack could have been a trap and points to a possibility of intelligence failure. Okay, so any incident wherein our soldiers are killed, any incident where our security forces are killed, there is some intelligence failure associated with it. Okay, so if your question comes in mains, okay, so what can be the probable reasons for such incidences? So you can quote intelligence failure as one of the reasons. Okay, what happened actually is that the security forces were conducting a raid only. Okay, they were conducting a counterinsurgency operation only, and when they were coming back they met with this incident. So this indicates that the raid which they conducted was itself a trap. It was laid by the Maoist people, and Maoist people used that as a good weapon for killing off the other soldiers per se. So it was basically an intelligence failure. Okay, let's move ahead. With the Maoists known to ramp up the attacks on security forces before the onset of monsoon seasons, the killing suggests a failure in anticipation of such attack. Now you have to remember this line very carefully. Okay, when the attacks intensify before the onset of monsoon season. Why I am saying before the onset of monsoon season? Because all of the areas which we discussed above, okay, Bastar, South Bastar, Andhra Odisha border, and districts of Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand. Okay, so these are the floodplains of rivers like Godavari, Mahanadi. Okay, So whenever you will have monsoon, these rivers will flood and the areas become inaccessible to the security forces. So before the onset of monsoon, this is the prime time of such kind of incidences. So please remember this info from this article. Okay, let's move ahead. Okay. But the task is easier than done as this is a tough terrain in a region which could be last stronghold of the Maoist. Okay. So what you need to remember now, the left-wing extremism is facing its last stronghold, is having a strong long hold in the areas of Bastar. Please remember this area very, very properly. Bastar, River Indravati. Okay, River Indravati is a very important tributary of Mahanadi River. So sorry, of Godavari River. So River Indravati is where you have the majority of the Maoist activities being done. Okay, it's a tough terrain. Okay, the inability of the Maoists to graduate beyond a violent guerrilla-based movement utilizes the remote and inaccessible forested terrain of central India. I'm again reiterating. Okay, what do the Maoist forces use? The Maoist forces use remote and inaccessible forested terrain of the central India. Remote and inaccessible forested terrain. And what is the name of the forest? The name of the forest is Dandakaranya. Okay, and is largely because of their incoherent, outdated ideology that has found few takers amongst most of the marginalities of the communities. Okay, so they use what? They use guerrilla tactics. Guerrilla tactics means they take the cover of the forest and using the cover of the forest they start attacking our security personnel. Okay, so it is not just the terrain topography that have acted as obstacles in defeating the Maoists in South Buster. This line is the most important line of the article. The alienation of a section of tribes caught in the crossfire between the security forces and the Maoists has allowed the minorities to tap a content of dissonance and presence in that area. Okay. What do you mean by this line? I'm again reiterating. The alienation of a section of tribals caught in the crossfire between security forces and the Maoists has allowed the Maoists to tap into discontent and to retain presence in that area. Now, what happens actually? Two things happen. Okay. Why do you have Maoist insurgency? Okay, the first reason for this is that the tribes which reside in these areas of India, they fear the outside culture. So just imagine that I am a tribal person residing in this area, and you come to me with your advanced modern day urban culture. So your culture and my culture is radically different. And if you force your culture on me, I start feeling alienated. If you bring development over here, or if you take me to the modern day cities, I will start feeling alienated. Why? Because my work, my lifestyle, my heart is linked closely with my culture. How can you impose your culture on me? So whenever you will have this faction war between the two factions, number first faction is the government faction, and number two between the Maoists, the people will be caught in the crossfire, and this will increase their alienation. Why? Because just imagine that you are sitting in an area and two forces are continuously fighting. So where will your development be assured? Okay, so this is one of the first reason why you have a strong hold of Maoist insurgency, because of the alienation. And this alienation pedagogy is tapped by the Maoists themselves. So they come to your doorstep and they will say, see, the government is not letting you out peacefully. Okay, you are being alienated in the name of development. So we are there to help you and please support us. Okay, and the second major reason for this is not the fear of alienation, but the fear of letting yourself into a disarray. Okay, what do you mean by this? So, from 2014 onwards, the government of India has started foray into these areas vis-a-vis two or three things. Number one, they have improved the communication infrastructure. They have opened up good public schools. They have opened up good midday meal schemes. They are also providing food security to the people of this area. So, because of this, what is happening is those people who were opposing this in the name of that whenever the government forces will come or whenever the government will come, they will impose their culture on us, and because of this, we will not be able to live our lifestyle, and our lifestyle will be completely lost. Let aside the alienation. Okay, alienation is when you can still follow your lifestyle, but the outside world is not respecting you. But if you are forced to change your lifestyle completely and you are not able to adopt to this, so the fear gets instilled in your brain. Okay, so alienation and fear, these two are the primary weapons wherein the Maoist people tap the local tribes of the region. So please make sure you understand this point very, very properly. Okay, alienation being the root cause of Maoist insurgency in these areas. Okay, so you have hard-edged strategies creating wedges among the tribal population to defeat Pavis have been counterproductive. The government must continue to try to win support and confidence of the tribal people of South Buster, as that is the surest way of defeating the Maoist movement. So, what is the surest way of defeating Maoist movement? Okay, see guys, we are all humans. Okay, everything runs on trust, everything runs on love, everything runs on reciprocity. So those of you who are watching these lectures, those of you who are listening to me on a daily basis, I also expect some reciprocity from you all, that you all will respond to me in some or the other way, because that is how the human discourse works. Okay, so instead of speaking big terms, development, okay, uh, good economy, inclusive development, what needs to be first done, it is that you need to develop some trust, support and confidence amongst the tribal peoples in the form of love, in the form of respect to that people. Okay, so I'm again reiterating, the government must continue to try to win support and confidence of the tribal people of South Buster, as that is the surest way of defeating the Maoist movement. Okay, so this can be your way forward in the answers. You can conclude your answers in this format. You have painted the picture, and now what must be the ideal way forward for the government? That first you need to develop trust and confidence amongst the tribals, that the government which is coming, it is for the people, of the people and by the people. Okay, the form of democracy that you have. Okay, so it is basically your voice which is going to be represented on a national level, not the government's voice. Government is working for you, by you and with you only. Okay, so I hope this article is clear to you all. And guys, don't make the mistake that you are rushing with the current affairs. Okay, it will come in editorial. If this is so damn important, it will somehow come in the main lead, or it will come in the text and context page. So just have some bread, drink some water every time. Okay, every hour you should drink 2 to 3 sips of water, and every day you should at least drink 5 to 6 liters of water if you are preparing for civil services examination, because it can dry out your brain very easily. Okay, so before ado, let's move ahead. Okay, so the next article that I'm discussing with you all today, okay, very, very good article and to the point article. A smile comes on my face whenever I see such kind of articles in the paper, which you can directly use in mains, and you can also use this article in prelims too. Okay, so the name of the article is not by Vande Bharat alone. Okay, so if I try to paint a picture of this article, so this article is written by K. Balakesari. He is belonging to the IR, Indian Railway Service of Mechanical Engineers, and he was a member staff of Railway Board. This article is a very good critical analysis of the present state of railways, wherein the railways should improve upon and what should be the future discourse. Guys, critical analysis questions are the most favorite of civil services examination. So such articles need to be dealt with utmost care. Okay, you cannot leave such kind of articles, and these articles will always bring a smile to my face because of their great utilitarian value. Now, guys, you don't need to summarize the complete article. Whatever I'm discussing on the board, whatever I'm highlighting in this PDF, only that needs to be summarized in your notes. Rest all you can skip. Okay, so before Vande Bharat, there was a very good experiment which began in India. Vande Bharat is basically the offshoot of that experiment. The name of the experiment was Train 18 Project, okay, which was wholly conceived, planned, and executed with M in record by a team of inspired, talented community railway professional of the Integral Coach Factory, Perambur, Chennai. So you have the coach factory in Perambur, Chennai. Please remember this. Even the Vande Bharat coaches, they are made in this factory. Integral Coach Factory, it stands for ICF Perambur in and Chennai. Okay, so please remember this from the film's perspective. Okay, So before Vande Bharat, there was a project which was run in throughout the India. You had speed tests, you had trials, whether the gauges of Indian Railways, whether the tracks of Indian Railways are able to support high-speed trains or not. Okay, so the name of the project was Train 18 project, and Vande Bharat is an offshoot of that project only. Okay, and it was started by some of the technical talented people in the Integral Coach factory in Perambur and in Chennai. Okay, so you all know that from 2017 onwards, the budget of the Indian Railways has now been merged with the general budget, and it's a welcome move. Okay, this article also paints a good move, also paints a positive picture with regards to this. Why this has been a welcome shift towards ramping up investments in Indian Railways, both through increased budgetary support from general exchequer and through institutional borrowings aimed at creating additional transport capacity ahead of demand. So what has basically the merging of budgets done for the railways? So your railway budget is now merged with the general budget. So you can have the investment directly from the general exchequer of India, and as you have the budget being merged, you can also borrow now money. And why we are borrowing that money? To create increased capacity ahead of the demand. So one of the best example of this is the Mumbai Surat expressway line, wherein you will have the bullet train running between Maharashtra and Gujarat. Okay, so why this has been planned? This has been planned because of the anticipation of increased demand in the future. So what has the merging of railway budget with the general budget done? It has done two things. Number one, it has done the ramping up of investment in the Indian railways. How? Through the increased budgetary support from general exchequer and through institutional borrowing. And number two, it has aimed at creating additional railway transport capacity ahead of the demand too. Okay, so please remember these 2 points in favor of merging of the railway budget with the general budget of India. Okay, now starts the critical analysis of the railways. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the negatives of the railway infrastructure which is present as of today. So we'll be talking the critical analysis in two areas. The first area is going to be freight. Freight means you have the transport of goods, and number two, you have the passenger front. Okay, so we will critically analyze the state of railways in India as of present day in two fronts. Number one is freight, and number two is the passenger front. So let us begin with the analysis of the freight sector. Okay, so you all know there has been a national railway plan NRP which envisages the increase the freight traffic vis-a-vis roadways from 27% to 45% by 2050, and this raising of average speed of good trains to 50 kilometers per hour from present 25 kilometers per hour, and concurrent reduction in traffic rates freight brought by up to 30%. So there is a national railway plan which has been envisaged. What are the three components of the plan? The first component is to increase the freight traffic vis-a-vis roadways. So the amount of goods which is transported by the roadways versus the amount of goods which is transported by the railways, you need to increase the freight share from 27% to 45% by 2050, and raising the average speed of good trains to 50 kilometers per hour from the present 25 kilometers per hour. So you are increasing the percentage share of profit freight, and also you are increasing the average speed of trains. Okay, and the last, you also have to reduce the traffic rates or the tariff rates while transporting the goods in the traffic, in the rail traffic. Okay, so national railway plan, if you are asked one line definition of it, so your one line definition should cover these three aspects. Number one, you have to do what? You have to increase the freight traffic through the railways from 27% to 45% by 2050. Number two, you have to increase the average speed of trains to 50 kilometers per hour from 25 kilometers per hour. And number three, you have to also reduce the tariff rates while transporting the goods through railways. So just one line definition of NRP, very beautifully explained in this article. So what is the present state? Okay. So the National Railway Plan is actually lacking in actuality. actually lacking in implementation. How? Okay, so the almost entire increase in volume carried by railway over the decade from 2008 to 2019 has been in short lead traffic. Okay, so there are two types of traffic. You have short lead traffic and you have long lead traffic. So what do you mean by short lead traffic? Short lead traffic means leads up to 300 kilometer. So the increase in the railway tariff or the release in the NK railway traffic with the widths to freight transport is mainly up to limited up to 300 kilometers only. Beyond 300 kilometers tariff is not that good in present day state. So I'm again reiterating the entire increase in the volume of traffic carried over by the railway from 2008 to 2019 has been only in the short lead traffic, not in the long lead traffic. And 55% of the increase was for the transport of just one commodity, that is coal. Okay, so I'm again reiterating. Where was this increase? The increase was only in the short lead traffic. Okay, short lead traffic. Okay, which is of course less than 300 kilometers, and only one commodity was focused, that was coal. Okay, around 55% of that increase was achieved only through coal. Rest of the goods, they didn't account for this increase in the traffic. Okay, yet there is no evidence of higher levels of traffic being achieved concurrently with diversification of commodities carried over or an increase in rail share vis-a-vis road transport. So if I'm highlighting you all the issues, so I'm just quickly opening up the background so that you understand this. Okay. So the National Railway Plan is doing what? The National Railway Plan is doing three things. It envisages increasing the rail traffic by around 50%, or let's say around 47% by 2045. Okay. Number two, it tends to increase the average speed by 50 kilometers per hour. Okay. Number three, it tends to do what? It tends to reduce the tariffs. It tends to reduce the tariff. And what is the present status? What is the present status of it? What is the present status? The present status is that though there is an increase in railway, though there is an increase in railway traffic, but this increase is only in short lead traffic. Short lead traffic. Short lead traffic. This traffic is only with regards to coal. Okay. Okay, only with regards to coal, roughly 55% of this. Okay, and what is short lead traffic? Anything which is less than 300 kilometers. So guys, please summarize this very, very properly from the article. Okay, so now from opening up the article again for you all, let's move ahead. And lastly, there is no diversification of commodities too. There is no diversification of commodities too. And there is no increase in the rail traffic compared to the road transport. So the percentage of goods that are transported by the freight corridor of the railways versus the percentage of goods that is transported by the roadways, it does not match at any case. Okay, the roadways are rather accounting for more tariff, more traffic as compared to the railways. So please remember this 2 to 3 points while doing the critical analysis of NRP, National Railway Plan, which you can directly utilize in mains. Guys, hence this article brings a smile to me because in just one article your entire answer is done. Okay, so this is with regards to the freight front. Now let's move to the passenger front. Okay, let's move to the passenger front now. You all know, most of you must have traveled by railways. So the most important thing or the most lacking thing in the Indian railways is punctuality. Okay, and this punctuality is very prudent everywhere, wherever you go in the Indian railway sector. And the most important reform that is needed from the passenger front with regards to railway infrastructure is achieving punctuality. Okay, so on the passenger front, perhaps the single most important operational index is punctuality. Here, a radical shift in emphasis is called for. If the stations in India railway network can be remodeled to international standards, perhaps it is time to aim for international standards in punctuality of the trains as well. So you all know that we are revamping these Indian railway stations to international level. So we should similarly aim for the international standards in punctuality too. Okay, so if you go to Japan, even if the train misses the time mark by just 0.13 seconds or even less than 13 seconds, 0.13 seconds, because that I have personally experienced when I've been to Japan. But even if there is a delay in less than 1 second, so government or the not government but the local officials over there, they issue a public apology to the people. Okay, so that is how much Japan is time bound. Okay, so we should achieve the same thing in India too. Now just assume that you are getting public apology for every delayed train in India, so that will be a catastrophe. Okay, basically not a good picture, but we should aim for that. Railways should aim to beat at least within 5 minutes without any adjustment of the scheduled time. So the train should at least reach within 5 minutes of the scheduled time. And what is the main problem over here? See, the main problem over here is only the destination arrival time is considered irrespective of the fact that the train might have been scheduled en route at all the important intermediate stations. If we collect the data as of today, so it shows that around 90% of the trains in India run on time. But this 90% is calculated on the basis of the time when train actually arrived on the final destination. The delay in the intermediate stations is not considered. So this should be done away with. Okay, we should also collect the data from the intermediate stations, and we should held the railways accountable for any delay in the intermediate stations too, and which how much delay is acceptable in the from a, in by the railways, not more than 5 minutes. Okay, now, guys, this is very important. It is high time to move away from the traditional concept of destination punctuality and evolve an index of punctuality that will also reflect the punctuality at select intermediate station, at least for all mail and express trains. So, you should also show us the punctuality of the trains at the intermediate station, and you can have very good application of Web3 over here. Remember, yesterday we discussed the Web3 article wherein we can use the decentralized analytic systems of Web3 to aggregate the data. So you can quote Web3 or you can interlink Web3 with the railways too. Okay. See guys, how utilitarian the analysis of Hindu is. Just one article interlinking with Web3, your complete answer on railway reforms is ready. Okay. So just summarize this one article in your notes. Don't need to refer any other material for your analysis of present status of railway infrastructure. Okay. So you can include the Web3. You can utilize the decentralized analytical system of Web3 for aggregating this data and for making Indian railways punctual. Okay. This article also talks about some of the other challenges of the railways. The other challenge being the financial performance, the physical performance, safety, organizational human resource issues, project execution, customer relations, effect of dedicated freight corridors on the railway system's capacity. So these are some of the other challenges. So if you just jot these challenges down in the form of bullets, your answer becomes even more fruitful. Okay. So just remember these challenges. And one thing I will like to add on, there are few coaches in India which are very old. Okay. And if you see a railway accident, you must be seeing that the coaches just slide over one another if the train derails. Okay. That feature is called as telescoping, wherein if the train derails, so the coaches just slide above one another. So right now we have a coach called as LHB coach, which is being produced at the ICF factory, and majority of the express trains today have the LHB coach. If you travel by train in near future, just see to the back of your coach, there it must be written LHB coach manufactured at ICF, okay, Integral Coach Factory. So LHB coach prevents that telescoping feature. Whenever the train will derail, the coaches won't slide above one another. So I'm just giving you with regards to the safety of the coaches. So just remember this telescoping feature of the LHB coaches. So LHB coaches don't have this telescoping feature. So the coach will derail simultaneously. They won't slide above one another, preventing human casualty and human losses too. Okay. Now the last point of this article. Okay. Government should consider tabling an annual report on the performance of Indian Railways in the Parliament on the lines of annual economic survey. So you all know that every year you have the audit of the Indian economy done, some of the suggestions given in the form of the economic survey. So similarly, you can also have a railway survey every year in the parliament. So this is a very good suggestion and you can use this as way forward in your answers too. Okay, you can summarize your answers very fruitfully using this info. What? The government should consider tabling an annual report on the performance of railways in the parliament on the lines of annual economic survey prepared by the finance ministry ahead of the general budget. This report, unlike a publicity template like the Indian Railways yearbook, should be internal performance audit. Very important. What is needed? A internal performance audit of the railways and should serve as a valuable resource for policymakers, CDS students, and also researchers in the field of rail transport. So, as economic survey has utilitarian value, it has research oriented value. Similarly, the Indian Railway Survey should do the same thing for researchers, for students, and for the researchers in the field of rail transport. So, just one article, guys. One article is covering each and every part of your preparation. Okay, so please summarize this article very, very carefully. I'm just quickly revising this article for you all. So, in this article, we discuss two fronts: the National Railway Plan from the freight angle, and number two, the passenger front from the punctuality angle. So, if we want to do the critical analysis, yes, there is an increase in the railway freight, but the railway freight increase is only in the short leads traffic, which is less than 300 kilometers, and 55% of that increase is by a single commodity, that is coal. Rest of the commodities don't have a fair share, and the road railways, if we consider the comparison between the number of goods or the quantity of goods transported by the roads and the number of goods or the quantity of goods transported by the railways, road sector is still way ahead. And we also need to reduce the tariff rates for the dedicated freight corridors. On the passenger front, punctuality is very important. Okay, punctuality in the sense of what? That we need a data on the punctuality of trains in the intermediate stations too. You can use Web3 decentralized analytical data process for this, for generating the data. And what is the ideal way forward? The ideal way forward is that the government should also table a Indian railway report similar to the Indian Economic Survey report, as it is tabled every year, so that we can audit the internal performance of the railways too. Okay, so now let's move ahead. Let's move to the discussion of another article. Now, this article is a very important article with regards to the nuclear energy sector, prospects and challenges of India. Okay, I told you every Friday you will have a parlay wherein you will have the viewpoints being discussed by the field experts. So you all know that recently Germany has done away with its nuclear energy sector. Okay, Germany has decommissioned all of its nuclear power plants. So now globally there is a debate that should countries do away with the nuclear power with regards to its safety, because you all know you had a very infamous incident in Chernobyl. You had a very infamous incident in Fukushima in Japan in the year 2011 when you had tsunami. So similar thing is being discussed in India too. Should India do away with the nuclear power? So this is a very eye-opening discussion on the nuclear power. So nuclear power, you have three things that are being discussed in the article. Is nuclear power necessary? Number two, what will be the liability if you have any accident? And number three, what should be the future discourse for India too? Okay, so let us begin with the discussion of this article. Yeah, good morning, Stuti. So let's discuss two or three things. The first question: globally, what is the outlook for nuclear power, especially when solar and wind power are becoming far more popular? So we have achieved historically low rates in solar traffics. So should we go for nuclear power or not? So here the author argues that what are the advantages of the nuclear power, particularly after the Ukraine war. Nuclear power is seeing a renaissance. Renaissance means what? It is being seen from a white light perspective. Okay, now this is the guiding light for us. Even in Europe and US and China has always been surging ahead on nuclear power. South Korea's new president has changed the energy policy and committed to increase the share of nuclear power in the country's energy mix up to 30% by 2030. Japan, which should have completely closed down reactors after Fukushima accident, is restarting them. 10 have been restarted following years of inspection and upgrading safety systems. So, what we are seeing now globally, instead of having a debate where we should close down the nuclear reactors, the countries are actually restarting them. Okay, Japan, which witnessed a major nuclear accident just 12 years down the line, the year 2011. So now it has started 10 more additional nuclear reactors. Okay, even Japan and UK. Okay, Japan has to do that because it was otherwise dependent either on the inexpensive imported coal or natural gas. Beyond Germany, UK has said that without scaling up nuclear power, it won't be possible to decarbonize the electricity sector. Decarbonize in the sense that electricity production globally is dependent on thermal power plants, and you all know thermal power plants are the harbinger of the global carbon emissions. So UK has directly said that if we want to decarbonize the energy sector, we have to rely on nuclear power. So what you are seeing globally now, globally you are seeing an uptick in nuclear energy. Okay, Japan has done it, UK has done it, USA, China, they're already doing it, France, it has already doing it. Just Germany is going on the other side. Okay, there is one very important thing over here. A lot of countries are saying that nuclear would be good to have in the mix because it is firm, dispatchable power, while wind and solar are intermittent or variable. What do you mean by intermittent or variable? So, if you're generating power by solar, but if you are generating power by the sun's energy, can you generate power in the night? No. If you are generating power by wind, can you generate power when the wind is not flowing? Absolutely not. Whereas nuclear power can be generated throughout the day, 24/7, 365 days a year. So the nuclear power is firm. It is dispatchable power. Dispatchable means you can generate and you can dispatch it there and there itself. There needs to be no upscaling or downscaling. Whereas when you are generating solar power, so it needs to be converted from DC to AC. Okay, so you have very tedious intermittent process before the solar power can actually be utilized. So the nuclear power is firm, it is dispatchable, while the wind and solar are intermittent or variable. Firm power is that power which can be sent to the electricity grid to be supplied whenever needed. So if you have increased demand, all of us know that India is moving towards urbanization. Our urbanization mix is now going upwards of 30-35%, and it is estimated that in coming 30 to 40 years, roughly 50 to 60% of India's population will get urbanized. And each year, the urban energy demand is increasing. Hence, nuclear power is a very good option. Why? Because as the energy demand surges, you can just uptick your nuclear energy production, nuclear energy power production. Okay. So, using an asset, whether a car or a power plant, till the end of its life is probably the best thing you could do for environment unless something can entirely displace it. Okay. So, what is this line with regards to? So, now there is a debate that should we shut down the thermal power plants. Now, guys, you tell me, if we have erected a thermal power plant, we have already invested in infrastructure, we have already invested in the production of the electricity, and plus we have already polluted the environment in the form of carbonization. Carbonization in the sense that we have made the thermal power plant using cement. Cement uses calcium carbonate. So in general, you have already polluted the environment, and if you are shutting down the plant wherein there is still life left in the plant, it means that you have not utilized the infrastructure to its maximum extent. So let's say you have brought a car, a brand new car, and you are decommissioning the car in just 2 years, whereas the lifespan of the car is at least 10 to 15 years. It's not a prudent policy. So, shutting down the thermal power plants completely is of no use. Similarly, shutting down the nuclear power plants completely is of no use at all. Why? Because you have already spent on the infrastructure, you have already spent on the economic aspects, and plus you have already invested in the waste infrastructure, wherein the nuclear waste needs to be properly dealt with. So, as shutting down thermal power plants is of no cost to benefit analysis, similarly, shutting the nuclear power plants is of no cost to benefit in this use. Okay, so please make sure that you are getting this point very, very properly. That okay, if you have erected nuclear power plant, use it to its full lifespan, and then think of decommissioning it instead of just decommissioning it in the middle of its lifespan. Okay, not a prudent policy. Let's move ahead. The nuclear industry is moving towards passive safety designs for nuclear reactors. Older designs required active cooling pumps, but now you have systems which, even if the power fails, will act gradually and gracefully control the temperature, waste heat, and things like that. Okay, the older designs, if you remember the Chernobyl incident, so there was a very infamous reactor used in over there. It is called as the KPMB reactor. So KPMB reactor required very active cooling components. Active cooling means that it needs to be cooled via numerous processes. It was not self-cooling. Whereas the present day reactors, they tend to cool themselves very properly using passive components. You don't require any further assistant, any outside assistance. So even if the reactor fails, you have good passive cooling in today's reactor. So considering the safety net, nuclear energy is very safe as of today as it was before. Okay. So I'm again reiterating, the nuclear industry is now moving towards passive safety designs for nuclear reactors. Older designs required active cooling pumps, but now the systems which, even if power fails, will gradually and gracefully control temperatures, waste heat, and things like that. Okay, so now, if in just one word I'm summarizing nuclear safety for you all, if anyone asks you what is present day status of nuclear safety, your answer should be passive. Okay, very good, short, sweet answer. Passive. Why passive? Because now the reactors can cool themselves off. They can control their parameters on themselves, whereas initially they need to be controlled from the outside. It's a world of smart tech. The nuclear reactors are also becoming smart. Okay, very crude explanation, but very short and simple answer. What is the status of nuclear safety today? Passive, wherein the reactors can control themselves. Okay, now let's move ahead. So, what about the radioactivity of the spent fuel? So, a very good analysis has been done over here. You can remember this line. Okay, the nuclear power plant at Kundakalam, for operating one of these units, 1000 megawatts at around 90% PLF. PLF stands for plant load factor. What you require over here is only 25 tons of low enriched uranium. Low enriched uranium means below 5% proportion of fissile uranium. So if you want to generate 1000 megawatts at 90% plant load factor, so you are burdening the plant at approximately 90% of its capacity. And if you want to generate 1000 megawatts, so how much percentage of low enriched uranium you need? You need approximately 25 tons. And what is low enriched uranium? Low enriched uranium is basically 5% of the fissile uranium. Okay. So three parameters we have discussed up till now. For generating approximately 1000 watts of energy at megawatts of energy at around 90% plant load factor, you require how many tons of low enriched uranium? 25 tons. And you require that low enriched uranium is how much of the fissile uranium is just 5% proportion of the fissile uranium. Compared to that, a coal plant of similar capacity will require approximately 5 million tons of coal. Just assume the difference between the two. On one side, you are only needing 25 tons, but if you want to generate 1000 megawatts of electricity using thermal power plant, and that too at the 90% plant load factor, how much coal you will be needing? You will be needing roughly 5 million tons of coal. Okay, so just see the input in the nuclear power plant and compare that with the input in the thermal power plant. Which of the two is prudent? Of course, the nuclear power plant. Okay. And the coal produces ash. And if you look at the power plants in the country, you have very big ash ponds just besides the thermal power plant. And sometimes the ash ponds is even bigger than the size of the power plant itself. So if you go to a thermal power plant and just besides that, you will find big ash ponds. Now government has mandated that you need to utilize that fly ash in construction, but that ash ponds are highly hazardous. So coal thermal power plants, number one, they are not efficient. Why? Because as compared to nuclear power plants, they will require roughly 10,000 times more energy in terms of coal input. And number two, they are also extremely polluting. Okay. Now, regarding nuclear liability, it is not money, but that the supplier of the components of the nuclear plant is exposed to various liabilities, including criminal liability. That is something which basically no Western company will accept. So, this is the only gray area with regards to nuclear power generation, wherein if you have failure, wherein you have failure of the nuclear power plant in terms of safety and you have any radioactive leakage, then the supplier responsibility is still in a gray area with regards to India. So, what needs to be worked on with regards to nuclear energy generation? The liability on the part of supplier. Okay, the supplier of the components needs to be made liable for the safety and the proper operation of the components. This is a very gray area and which India should perceive the Western countries with an aggravated stance, that please ensure the safety of the nuclear power plants. Okay, safety in the sense they are safe. Basically, it's not that it's extremely unsafe, they are safe, but if somehow some of the components fail, then the supplier should be held accountable. Okay, yeah. Now let's move ahead. India has a very limited growth potential for hydropower because of its conservation biodiversity and the cost of rehabilitating and compensating the landowners. So hydropower has got very limited potential in India. Why? Because of three things. Number one, because of conserving biodiversity. Number two, costs of rehabilitation. And number three, compensating the landowners. So if you have just one line definition of why hydropower has got limited potential in India, you can utilize these 3 points: conservation of biodiversity, number two, cost of rehabilitating, and number three, compensating the landowners whenever the land is acquired for the hydro projects. And of course, the seismological factors in the Himalayas. Himalayas are highly prone to earthquakes, all of you know, and these earthquakes can strike the region with very high intensity. Okay, so seismological factors in Himalayas are also affecting the hydropower generation. The alternative to coal is unclear. We got have nearly 200 gigawatts of coal capacity, which produces 73% of electricity of India, whereas nuclear power is only 3.2% as of today. So we should reduce the dependence on coal. We should rely on nuclear energy too. Okay, the Department of Atomic Energy and how it works, we can conclude that the business as usual cannot continue. One of the major reasons for the growth of nuclear power hindered is because we have monopoly. All the reactors are operated by Nuclear Power Corporation of India, and the first thing that happened is the civilian nuclear program. Okay, what do you mean by this? If we want to diversify our energy mix, if we want to diversify our energy mix from coal to nuclear power, what needs to be done? First of all, we need to step outside of the regulation. Regulation means what? That majority of the nuclear power plants of India are run by whom? They are run by the Nuclear Power Corporation of India. Now there needs to be some civil engagement too. Civil engagement means to it means that nuclear power plant should not be privatized. There must be some government outlook on that. There must be some government overwatch on that. But the investment should also be come from the civilian area. Okay. What does this mean? That you should not allow other government companies, you should allow other government companies like NTPC to get into the nuclear field too. Okay, so the National Thermal Power Plant Corporation should also be able to build its own nuclear power plants and they should also be able to run. So, not only depending on just one government agency, but other government agencies should also be given the privilege of constructing the nuclear power plants, and it should be rather a civilian exercise. Okay, civil exercise means it shouldn't be given completely to the private sector, but yes, we should open up the sector to other companies too. So these are the three or four very important headwinds for India. Headwinds, I'm quickly summarizing the article for you. Is nuclear energy a good option? Yes, nuclear energy is a good option. Why? Because it is firm, it is dispatchable power, it is not variable, it is not intermittent. Okay, you can generate nuclear energy throughout the year, 24 hours a day. What about nuclear safety? The nuclear reactors are now passive reactors. Hence, you don't need to worry with regard to safety. The nuclear reactors are capable of self-cooling very peacefully, very gradually, and the heat sink also functions very properly as of today. Okay. The only gray area is in terms of nuclear liability, wherein the supplier of the components should be regulated or should be held accountable if one of the components fail. Are nuclear power plants efficient? Yes, of course, as compared to thermal power plants. Why? Because if you want to generate 1000 megawatts of electricity at 90% load factor, so on one end, nuclear power plant will only use how many tons of uranium? 25 tons. Whereas the coal power plant, the thermal power plant will use roughly 5 million tons of coal. So input versus output, nuclear power plant is extremely efficient. Okay, and what needs to be future discourse? Government should open up this sector. You must have other companies which are investing in nuclear energy generation and they are building up their own plants. So this is a very good parlay with regards to the discussion of nuclear energy sector in India, the challenges and the way forward. I hope this article is clear to you all. Now let's move to the discussion of the second last article today. This article is very, very important, and I want each of you to summarize this article very, very properly. Okay, the threat of rising sea levels. So, you have a report which has been tabled by the WMO, World Meteorological Organization. Okay, the World Meteorological Organization has found in a new report that the world sea level is rising at an unprecedented rate, portending potentially disastrous consequences. Okay, what is the name of the report? The name of the report is State of Global Climate 2022. Okay, please make sure that you are summarizing this report very, very properly. State of Global Climate Report 2022, wherein what is discussed along with accelerating sea level rise, it focused on consistent rise in global temperatures, record breaking increases in the concentration of greenhouse gases, glacier loss, sustained drought-like conditions in East Africa, record rainfall in Pakistan, and unprecedented heat waves that struck Europe and China in the year 2022. So, if you see just one paragraph, so you have global climatic extreme events being discussed in this paragraph. So, what is your duty today? That you are summarizing this in your notes too. So, if I paint a picture of 2022, what were the global extreme climatic events? Number one, consistent rise in global sea levels. Number two, consistent rise in the concentration of global greenhouse gases. Number three, glacier losses. Number four, drought-like conditions in Africa. Number five, record rainfall in Pakistan. And number six, unprecedented heat waves that struck Europe and China. So these are the six climatic extreme events that occurred in the year 2022 and which are detailed in the State of Global Climate Report 2022 by WMO. Okay. So now, are the sea levels rising? The answer simply is yes. Okay. The rate of global mean sea level, okay, it is called as GSML, rise has doubled between the first decade of the satellite record and the last. How much is this increase? Please read this. The increase is very alarming. According to WMO, the sea level has been rising in the 3 decades for which the satellite altimeter data is available between 1993 and 2002. But while the rate of sea level rise was just 2.27 millimeter a year in the year 1993-2002, it shoot up to 4.62 millimeter a year in 2013 and 22. Okay, so it has almost doubled in the sense of doubled in the sense of the last 2 decades. Okay, between 1993 and 2002 it was just 2.27 millimeter a year, whereas In 2013 and 22, it has up to 4.62 millimeter a year. So the sea level rise is roughly doubling every decade. Okay, mind you, this is a very important data, and you can quote this data everywhere. You can quote this data everywhere. Okay, please utilize this data at any cost, and you can quote this data in your essays, in your answers, in case studies, everywhere. Okay, now we are discussing what has caused the accelerated sea level rise, the reasons. Okay, so the main reasons for this are fivefold. Number one, you have ocean warming. Number two, you have ice loss. Ice loss from where? From glaciers, from ice sheets, and change in the land water storage. Okay, so if I want to summarize, so you have ocean warming, you have ice loss. Ice loss from where? You have from glaciers, you have from the ice sheets. Ice sheets basically the cryosphere region of the earth. And number fifth, change in the land water storage. Okay. Loss of glaciers and ice sheets contributed to roughly 36% to the rise of the global sea mean level. Okay. So how much the loss of glaciers in the form of ice and ice sheets has contributed to mean sea level rise? Roughly 36%. Okay. The phenomenon of rising mean ocean temperatures contributed to around 55%. Okay. Ocean warming. Ocean warming means what? As we are carbonizing our atmosphere more and more, oceans are nothing but the heat sinks of the earth. So ocean will absorb roughly 90% of the atmospheric carbon dioxide within themselves. And this has contributed to roughly 55% of the mean sea level rise. So number one is the oceanic warming because of increased release of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And number two, it is because of the glacier loss around 36%. And lastly, the changes in the land water storage has contributed to around 10%. Okay. 90% of the extra heat is stored in the oceans. Oceans, they act as what? Oceans, they act as heat sinks. Please remember this word. Oceans act as heat sinks. So around 90% of the extra heat that we release in the atmosphere is stored in the oceans in the form of heat sinks. Okay. The cryosphere, here you have the definition of cryosphere. The cryosphere, which includes the Arctic and Antarctic regions, the glaciers, the ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica, seasonal snow cover, and the permafrost, the mass of land that remains below 0 degrees Celsius for at least two straight years. So this is the definition of cryosphere. This cryosphere is also melting. So in your notes, you should also summarize the definition of cryosphere. What is the definition of cryosphere? Cryosphere includes what? The Arctic and the Antarctic regions called as sea ice, the glaciers, the ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica. It also includes seasonal snow cover and permafrost region. Permafrost region means the mass of land that remains below 0 degrees Celsius for at least two straight years. So, very important article with regards to the current state. Okay. And now we are moving to the very important part of the discussion of this article. What will be the consequences of the sea level rise? Okay. So, the consequences of sea level rise will be number one, it will swallow more land in coastal areas, coastal communities, and they will face an acute shortage of land for human use. So, as more and more land comes under the purview of the sea, land use patterns will shift along the coastal areas. Okay. As the global mean sea level continues to rise, along with the rise in the oceanic temperatures, the chance of cyclones could increase. Okay. You must have heard with regards to a particular cyclone called as Cyclone Freddy. Okay. Cyclone Freddy was very much in news this year because it was the first cyclone to ever recorded wherein that cyclone lasted for more than a month. Okay. It struck Africa and the island of Madagascar twice in the time span of less than 35 days. So oceanic warming will also increase the chances of cyclones. The cyclones will become more frequent and they will have more intensity. Okay. And the last thing which we can discuss over here, effects on India. Okay, you all know the Sundarban Delta in the West Bengal, the world's largest mangrove area. So rising sea levels and coastal erosion due to loss of land and sediment from coastal areas has left more islands submerged underwater and that in turn has forced the member of local communities to migrate. So in Sundarban, what is being documented, because of increasing sea level rise, the local communities are forced to migrate from the coastal areas and settle inwards. And because of this, you are having record loss of land and sediments from the coastal areas. Okay. The last point, the lives of the local communities are highly dependent on the economic activities which are tied on the coastal ecosystem. So, if global sea level rises, predominantly the economic status of the coastal areas will also dwindle. Why? Because it is dependent on the local economy of the coastal areas, and hence changes in the coastal ecosystem as a result of global sea level mean rise, especially when it happens faster than the rehabilitative laws can catch up, will further endanger what? The socio-economic stability of these communities. So, the rise in global sea level will also result into socio-economic consequences along the coastal communities. So, if I'm summarizing this for you, consequences. So, consequences, the coastal areas will undergo a change in the land use patterns. Number two, they will have to migrate to higher reaches because the coastal areas get submerged. And number three, their socio-economic status will also change because as their lifestyle was dependent on the socio-economic activities of the coastal regions, the economic activities of the coastal regions, and now as the land is getting submerged over there, your social economic lifestyle will also change. Basically, the local agriculture patterns will change, and that is what being seen in the Sundarban Delta region too. Okay, people over there are increasingly witnessing change in the agricultural patterns. Because of this, they have to migrate, and their lifestyle is getting hampered. So this is the most important article of today's discussion. What does the global mean sea level rise say? Okay, the State of World Climate Report 2022 given by WMO, World Meteorological Organization. Okay. Now, the last article for today. Okay, it's a headline article. Don't need to do it in detail. Just read this article once. It will be taken care of. Just read from the PDF that I'll be posting on the group, the same PDF, and you will be taken care of. Okay, it's just a headline article, basically with regards to the reforms in the army. Okay, so several major decisions were taken at the Army Commanders Conference that was held last May. The Army Commanders Conference has decided, number one, to operationalize and cyber operations and support wing. Okay, so this is very important. It has decided to what? To operationalize command cyber security operations and support wing. Okay, CCO SWS in the immediate future with current focus on net-centric operations. So with regards to cybersecurity, Indian Army has going to start CCOSWS, convert the number two, convert the 5-year technical entry scheme for entry of officers to 4 years from January 2024, train motivated soldiers for Paralympic events, very important, and double the sustenance allowance to specially abled children of personnel killed in the line of duty through Army General Insurance Fund. So these are some of the initiatives which are being taken as reforms in Indian Army. So just go through this once. You don't need to remember very much in detail. Just you need to remember the tidbits that what are the reforms that are being done. So Indian Army is now going to focus on cybersecurity. They are reducing the term of the 5-year technical entry scheme from 5 to 4 years. Number two, they are also going to motivate the Indian soldiers for Paralympic events, and they will also double the allowance to the specially able children of the personnel killed in the line of duty through Army General Insurance Fund. So, just a headline article, just remember this. So, this sums up the discussion of today's Hindu for everyone. I'm again reiterating, guys. My name is Pritesh Mathurkar. You can reach to me on Telegram on this channel. Okay, wherein I will be discussing the PDFs daily, wherein I will be putting the PDFs daily. The name of the channel is the Hindu Analysis Zone, and the acronym of the channel is HAZ, similar to SEZ. Okay, so please make sure that you are subscribing to this, wherein you will get the PDFs as I'm discussing then and there itself after this session. So I thank you all on the behalf of Study IQ, and I hope to see you all tomorrow when we'll be discussing the current affairs of 29th April, Saturday. Okay, thank you. Have a great day, everyone.